Hey, what's up everybody? Mark Price here with devslopes.com, and today we are going to step into the world of programming. So let's go ahead and pull up in Unity here. I'm going to go to File, New Project. And we're going to call this one Learn to Code. 3D is fine. Let me turn off analytics, we don't really need it. And this looks good. Great project. So we're going to be learning C#, and we could do this with a basic compiler outside of Unity and teach you some really boring stuff, but you're building games, so why not learn how to code through the actual system that you'll be using? And we'll make it very game related, which I think is great. And so what you want to do is click project, and we want to right click here in the assets folder and create a new C# script. Okay, and we're going to call this one variables. We're going to try and call it variables. Variables. Had some technical difficulties there for a moment with my Logitech keyboard. Bluetooth wasn't syncing up, so now we're going to go old school gaming mechanical keyboard. So you should have your variables C# script here. Now, when working with Unity, you're going to create different scripts, and they're going to live inside your project, and you're actually going to drag those scripts onto objects. And so we're going to do that now. We're going to grab this script here, and we're going to drag it on to the main camera. Okay. And if you click main camera, you should see the script right here called variables. What it means is it's attached to the game object. So when the scene starts, okay, the script is going to come to life. All right, and this is different than other types of programming systems. You don't drag scripts onto objects. This is specific to Unity, but the code part that you'll be learning is the same that you might learn anywhere, and it will definitely apply. So I'm going to Command S to save this scene, and we're going to call this scene Learn to Code. Okay, we've just saved the scene. You notice the little scene icons there. Now to open the script, all you need to do is double click it. And this is going to load up MonoDevelop, which is the IDE. And we'll be using MonoDevelop for this. And you can also use Visual Studio, which I'll be showing you later, if you don't want to use the built-in MonoDevelop. And you'll notice here, when you click your variables.cs, okay, you'll notice that there's a start function and an update function. Okay, these are called functions. And what happens is when you drag that script onto a game object and you run your game, the start function is going to be called when it starts, and the update function is going to be called over and over and over again, like a game loop. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. So we're going to put all of our code in the start function so it runs as soon as we run our game. Okay, and if you want to change the font size, all you have to do is Command Shift or Control Shift, or excuse me, Alt Control Shift minus O. So this is where we're going to start writing our code. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let's create our very first variable. Okay, we're going to type in string, and let's think of something that makes sense to put in here. If you're working on a game, maybe an RPG, you might have a main character, a hero, okay? And the hero is going to probably have a name, okay? So the name of this hero is going to be Thanos, which is actually a villain, and not very RPG-like, is it? It's more like sci-fi. I guess an RPG can be sci-fi. So here's the name, Thanos, and we just created our very first variable. And what we're doing here is we're specifying the type of variable that you have. And so in this case, it's a string or a series of characters, basically words, things that are going to print out to a user in some way or form. Okay, and then so we specify the type, and after the type, we specify the name of the variable itself. So this is called a name, and this can be called anything that you want it to be called. You just can't put numbers in front of it. Okay, and then we have an equal sign. Okay, an assignment operator, that's the key phrase here. It's an assignment operator, and we are storing this word inside of this variable called name. okay? And the word that we've chosen is Thanos inside of double quotes here. And then we end the statement, that's another keyword, with a semicolon here. So this is the type of variable, a string, or it could be a number of some kind, the name of the variable, and then we are assigning something into the variable. So a variable is like a bucket, okay? It's like a bucket that you put a label on in your garage. So for instance, you might have a bucket of nails, a bucket of screws, and a bucket of something else, okay? And they're each going to have their various labels on each of those buckets, so you know what's in them when you want to go and fetch them, okay? So in this case, we're naming the string we're calling it name, so we can access it later on. And what's happening here is the moment that you create this variable called name on the computer or the phone or whatever you're working on, it's going to reserve space in memory, okay, in the RAM of your computer. It's going to find a location there, and you're basically reserving a spot in memory to store this word here, and you're giving it a name to look it up by. In this case, the name is name, or it could have been something else. And so we could have called this hero name. And then it's stored in memory, and this is just a reference so us humans can reference it again here in the code. It's readable. Okay, so there's our first variable name called Thanos. What else? Well, let's see, a character carry a weapon? Sure. So let's make a weapon in here. So string, and we're gonna call this equipped weapon equals I'm gonna say infinity gauntlet. All right, so Thanos, his equipped weapon is the infinity gauntlet. Okay, so there's another string that we just created with its own name. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. We're already building games here. We could build a text-based game, so that's kind of cool. What else? String favorite furniture. Throne. He just kind of likes to sit there, right? Notice how every single movie he's just sitting there. I wonder if he can even get up. Maybe he's handicapped. So as you can see right here, we're creating different strings. They each have their own name with their own value in them, and we can actually print these to the screen of the game by doing debug.log and just passing in the value there. So we can say hero name, and then we could say debug.log and equipped weapon, and debug.log favorite furniture. Okay, so then what we can do is we can go back to Unity, okay, and just click this run button here. Well, first let's click the console here and then click the run button. And notice it printed up the word Thanos, it printed up Infinity Gauntlet, and it printed up Throne. Okay, pretty cool. And we can press the play button to stop it. And so what happened was the moment that we pressed play, it went through and compiled the code. And then when the game actually started here in the start function, this was called, and then it created these variables and it printed them to the log here. Okay, so what you're doing is you're just working with data. Okay, you're specifying a type, giving it a name, and then assigning it a value. Okay, three things there: specifying the type, the name of the variable, and assigning it a value. Okay, and you don't have to assign it a value right away if you don't want to. We could have said string, favorite planet. I don't know what planet he lives on, right? But maybe he doesn't have one yet. And then he decides he's going to go attack Earth and fight the Avengers. And so now, after all that happens, favorite planet is now equal to Earth. Okay? And so you can assign it later as well, too. But just know that you can't access this until you assign it a value. So if I was to put in right here, debug.log, and pass in favorite planet, okay, save it, go back to Unity, and then run it. Oh, look at this. Use of unassigned local variable. It won't even let me. It's a compiler error here. It won't let me use it until I've assigned a value into it. Why? Because that would crash your program. It's null. There's nothing in it. Okay? Very, very important. Nothing's happened up to this point. So this is not going to work. Instead, let's move this Command X or Control X to cut. we're going to just paste it below here. Okay, save it, and then this error should go away automatically, and then we're going to run it again, and it printed up just fine. Okay, so variables have to be assigned before you can use them. Very, very important. Cool. So we worked with variables, and we worked specifically with a string. There's a couple fun things we can do with a string, just for fun. Let's do another debug.log. Let's say we want to capitalize the infinity gauntlet. Okay, so we can say equipped weapon dot to upper, put two parentheses at the end of it because we're going to call a function. That's what it's called there. It's a function. You'll learn more about that. So we're taking the equipped weapon right here. We're calling a function of the string. String has various functions that you can use. We're calling that function, and let's see what happens when we run this. Oh, I did not save it. That's why. That's why you got to save it. Now let's run it. There you go. Infinity Gauntlet, all in uppercase, as you can see there. Okay. So we called a function there. And if you press a dot button after your string, there's different things that you can do. Index of, get type. You can learn more about these on the internet. Do a search for these. Type in C# string to upper. You'll find the documentation for that. Of course, you can always hover over this here and see what, well, this is not giving us very much information, is it? Yeah, it's going to tell you what it's going to return, things like that. So pretty cool. You can have a few different options you can work with on your strings there, but that's variables. The important thing to remember with variables, and it can be confusing, is that you're specifying what type of variable it is. Is it a string? Is it a number? We haven't covered numbers yet. You give it a name so you can reference it later, or programmers can. And then once you've done that, it's reserving a spot in memory on the RAM of the computer you're working on, or the phone, whatever it is. And then you assign it a value, and it must have a value before you can use it, or your program won't compile, or your program will crash. Very, very important stuff. Okay? So that's it for now. Variables, go ahead and play with this a little bit. Write some more strings, print them to the screen, have some fun with it, and that's it for now. Mark Price at devslopes.com. Moving on and forward.